So there was a lot of pushback as far as carrier or say buyers on the East Coast using brokerages that were based in Arizona because of this. The simplicity of it was that you would have a telephone, you would pick up loads, you would solicit loads from a shipper, and then you would, this is the bad apples, they would then go ahead and collect the money, pay the carriers quickly, so the carriers would keep coming back, and then what would happen is they would book a bunch of freight, get all the money and not pay the carriers. So it was fraud, and the fraud's been there in the transportation business since I started. We have our own systems in place at Greenway that basically avert us from getting caught in many of those traps that happen, because they still do happen. In 1982, well, at that time also, I was specializing in flatbed freight and dry van freight because I was involved in the produce industry, specifically with melons and onions. Those required those type of equipment. I did not get heavily involved in the refrigeration business until after Greenway was started, and that was surely by accident. I can't emphasize again the mentorship part that these men played in my life long term. When I decided to leave the brokerage I was at, the second brokerage I was at before I started Greenway was a company called Valentine Truck Brokers. At that time, they were probably in the top 3 or 4 brokerages in the United States, competing with C.H. Robinson. We had a corporate jet, and this is in the 70s. It was a lot of money involved, but I was the odd man out. They specialized in refrigerated freight. I learned a lot about refrigerated freight from working there, but I was still dry vans and flatbeds because that's what you hauled onions and melons in at that time. They didn't require a lot of refrigeration. Believe it or not, when I started in the industry back then, we didn't even have fax machines. That was something. Everything was over the telephone. They would call you, give you an order number, and you would call a dispatcher at a truck company and transport it. So that's parts of the big technological changes at that point in time. In 1982, I decided to go ahead and leave Valentine's. I learned a lot there, but again, because I felt odd man out there because they were all refrigeration, I was dry van and flatbed and did some refrigerated business. I left and started Greenway. One of my mentors was upset with me because they couldn't believe I was leaving a company as big as Valentine's, which I did anyway, because I felt, okay, I don't fit. I had no support. Was that because the industries that I was in? In March 15th, 1982, I left and started Greenway. And we did, in fact, start primarily with the dry van and flatbed business. I was also doing some bare root rose bushes, and most people won't believe this, but at that time we were the top 4 or 5 shippers of rose bushes in the United States. Most people don't know where that, the areas of what we call Peoria and Glendale now, which are all houses, that was all farmland. Matter of fact, where we're photographing this right now, which is on the Pima Indian Reservation, was J.A. Woods Company, which is one of the largest vegetable shippers in the western United States at that time. Victor Valentine, the man that owned Valentine, got very suddenly ill, and he passed away. And a lot of the customers, I knew of them when I was at Valentine's because they were all of a sudden in a lurch trying to find transportation for their freight, started calling me, and we got moved to, we being Greenway, got moved into the refrigeration business in a way that I didn't expect. That's been long-term. That has affected, matter of fact, at this point, we're probably, the bulk of our freight is refrigerated. What happened is because I, business-wise, worked with larger carriers, because when I was working initially at the older companies, I was moving cottonseed for a company called Delta and Pine Land Corporation, which at that time was the largest cotton company in the United States. They were bought out by Monsanto Corporation, which then sold them to Bayer Corporation. But at that time, the seed was field loaded, and because when I had to move a lot of loads, when they would say on tarp a load of cotton down in Tonopah or down by Gila Bend, Arizona at that time, which was the middle of nowhere,